This is the Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang, and I'm reviewing Ramana Maharshi's book, Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today we are on talk 26, and let me go to that dialogue now. The disciple asks, how shall we discover the nature of the mind? That is its ultimate cause, or the noumenon, of which it is a manifestation. And a noumenon is a mental object independently of human sense or perception. Maharshi said, arranging thoughts in the order of value, the I thought is the all important thought. Personality idea or thought is also the root or the stem of all the other thoughts, since each idea or thought arises only as someone's thought and is not known to exist independently of the ego. The ego, therefore, exhibits thought activity. The second and third person do not appear except to the first person. Therefore, they arise only after the first person appears. So all the three persons seem to rise and sink together. Trace, then, the ultimate cause of I or personality. The I idea arises to an embodied ego and should be related to a body or an organism. Has it a location in the body or a special relation to any particular spot, as speech, which has its center in the brain, or amativeness in the brain? Certainly, has I got any center in the brain, blood, or viscera? Thought life is seen to center around the brain and the spinal cord, which in turn are fed by the blood circulating in them, carrying food and air duly mixed up, which are transformed into nerve matter. Thus, vegetative life, including circulation, respiration, alimentation, etc., or vital force, is said to be or to reside in the core of the essence of the organism. Thus, the mind may be regarded as the manifestation of vital force, which again may be conceived as residing the heart. The disciple asks, now for the art of eliminating the mind and developing intuition in its stead, are they two distinct stages with a possible neutral ground, which is neither the mind nor intuition? Or does the absence of mental activity necessarily involve self-realization? Maharshi says to the practitioner, there are two different stages. There is a neutral ground of sleep, coma, faint, insanity, etc., in which the mental operations either do not exist or consciousness of self does not prevail. The disciple then says, taking the first part first, how is the mind to be eliminated or relative consciousness transcended? Maharshi, the mind is by nature restless. Begin liberating it from its restlessness. Give it peace. Make it free from distractions. Train it to look inward. Make this a habit. This is done by ignoring the external world and removing the obstacles to peace of mind. The disciple asks, how is restlessness removed from the mind? Maharshi, external contacts with objects other than itself, makes the mind restless. A loss of interest in the self, vairagya, is the first step. Now, the questioner sets the context immediately with the question, with the implied world noumenon, which is a mental object that exists independently of the senses. This establishes the unreality of the mind. The mind knows only imperfect mental objects, not the thing itself. The mind also knows things that it has created itself. The mind is unreal. The mind organizes itself around one of these ideas, the I idea, the idea of being an individual, separate from everything and everyone else. When you start with unreality, can you ever get to reality from there? Then the center of the mind's noumenon is this I thought, which is imagined. Unreality based on unreality. This gets pretty thick. Then the ego thinks it is thinking, and all the thoughts are within the context of I. So everything and everyone that is seen is in relation to this I thought. Ramana points out that if you carefully investigate, you'll not be able to find this I anywhere within the mind or body. You can find the organic parts of the brain, but can't find the I anywhere specific. So this I thought is an idea. Then the questioner asks about eliminating the mind and developing intuition instead. Eliminating the mind is the whole purpose of practice. The questioner also asks about intuition. This talk is the first time I've seen intuition referred to in any of the reading I have done about Maharshi. Intuition is a good word for the non-cognitive understanding you find within yourself when you're not listening to the commentary of the mind. Ramana then confirms two stages of practice in a neutral zone where the mind is inactive. The first stage seems to be the elimination of the mind. Ramana starts telling us something we already know. The mind is restless, but you can train it to pay attention. Where this starts is with caring less about the world and what happens in the world. This is dispassion, vairagya. My teacher Nome tells us that a great way to establish dispassion is to deeply know that the happiness you seek from external objects and people really rises up from within yourself. We all want happiness. So when you know the source of happiness is within, instead of looking for it in the world, you start to look within for this happiness. Ramana gives us a list of things important to the mind for practice. He says, give it peace, make it free from distraction, train it to look inward, make this a habit. This is not self-inquiry, but is vital preparation for it. I've found that often in life, success is the result of preparation. How important is freedom from what seems to limit you? And how important is happiness to you? If it is important enough, then you will do what is needed to prepare yourself. Now we'll listen to a dialogue from Nome on the mind.
The mind resolves itself in the self. The mind is dissolved. The mind is destroyed. These statements and one similar to them we find in the instructions given by the Maharshi, as well as strewn throughout the Upanishads and other scriptures. What is the mind? On the one hand, the Maharshi has said the mind is only a bundle of thoughts. And on the other hand, the Maharshi has said the mind simply does not exist. Regarding the latter instruction, he has said, realizing the mind's non-existence is the direct path for all. What is the mind? When he said it is only a bundle of thoughts, it's to remove the false notion that there is a second knowing entity other than the infinite consciousness. The infinite consciousness in which there is no knower and known, no subject and object, which are illusions that appear only in the waking state of mind and the dreaming state of mind. When he said, this is the direct path for all, to realize the mind's non-existence. What else is this but the profound realization that there is no second identity no second entity, and therefore no duality. That is, there is no one to say, I know the self, or I do not know the self. Regarded as a bundle of thoughts, the first thought, integrally connected to all the other thoughts, is the notion I. It is merely the barest assumption, hardly a thought. All the other ideas are based upon it. Or from another perspective, all the other ideas are just the idea of I in various guises. Therefore, the inquiry, who am I, puts an end to the mind by showing that it never actually exists. That which was never created is said to perish or dissolve. What else is that resolution, dissolution, or destruction but the knowledge of what is real, in which the unreal has never come to be? What else is loss of the ego but the realization that the self alone exists eternally? And there is nothing and no one else, ever. The reality that alone is, for which there is no alternative, for which there is no other, in which there is no differentiation, which is beginningless and endless, is truly called non-duality. Whether you comprehend what is being indicated or not, even now, what is it that so knows? I understand, I do not understand. What is it that knows this? To fathom the depths of your own identity, your own existence, you must inquire more deeply than the perceiving and the conceiving, the perceived and the conceived. For what you are in truth certainly cannot be a body or the senses. And it cannot be the mind or its thought forms. What is it that you call I? What is it that appears as a mind? Existence, which is invariably singular, which alone deserves the name I, what is its nature? The consciousness which is ever shining, synonymous with that existence, which always knows, but is never divided into triads of knower, knowing, and known. What is it? Can there be a mind in that? If all of illusion and its consequent bondage and suffering is just the delusion of the mind, yet the mind itself is found not to exist, what remains? Inquire within yourself to know the knower without superimposing any of the attributes of the known upon the knower. Self-luminous consciousness, self-known, hence self-knowledge, remains. You who are, however you imagine yourself to be, inquire as to who you are. Being, which is unborn and indestructible, utterly formless and undifferentiated, which always is, only as it is, remains as it always is. This we loosely refer to as self-realization. Yet who realizes what? Nevertheless, the falsely assumed ego or mind is nowhere to be found. Bondage is impossible, and immortal bliss is realized as the natural state.
All right. Now we're going to have a short guided self-inquiry. Just sit and relax and take a deep breath and feel the breath going in and going out. Notice that you exist and you know that you exist without thinking about it or feeling it. You just know. This is already knowing that is deeper than the mind and the senses. Now inquire, investigate within yourself. Take any thought. Who knows the thought? Does the thought know itself? Who is the knower? Take your ego, your sense of identity as this body. Who knows the ego? Does the ego know itself? Who is the knower? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? Am I a body? Am I the life force that animates the body? And am I a thinking mind? Am I an ego? Am I the quietness in deep sleep or meditation? All of these are known. Who is the knower? All right. Let's close with a short chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Any questions or comments?
I can't think of words at the moment. Yeah, it's just whoops, we got dogs working here. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Now, when I read this question and answer and dialogue, what and reflected on it, what I see still is how much of a problem, how much in the way is thought,
Yeah,
to my own inner peace. And, I appreciate Ramana giving some guidance about how to deal with it. And it still seems like to me, as I listen, how to deal with it is the heart of that is regular spiritual practice. And in that regular spiritual practice, you are training your mind to concentrate and to be quiet. I appreciate also how he said to be able to really do this, you have to know the source of happiness, because otherwise, all of these distractions that surround.
yeah.
Anyway, thank you for
Namaste.